welcome to the TATV Defence Monthly Show for the emerging markets of Africa, Arabia and South Asia. I'm Alan Peaford.
And I'm Jon Lake. We're going to be looking at the outcomes of the Turkish Defence exhibition that was held earlier this month. Jay Menon will be joining us from Delhi to talk about India's new aircraft carrier, and he'll also be bringing us other news from South Asia. And we'll be hearing from one company who are heading to London from Saudi Arabia for the big DSEI event in September.
But first, this short message from our sponsors. Don't go away. Welcome back. Now, Jon, you've been getting all excited about the IDEF show in Turkey, and tell us all about it.
At this month's event, Turkish Aerospace Industries formally exhibited a model of its new National Combat Aircraft, or MMU, which we previously knew as the TFX. Now, 250 of these stealthy tactical fighter aircraft are due to be procured between 2029 and 2040, and the programme is now designated as a National Survival Project. Turkish Aerospace President and CEO, Professor Temel Kotil, said that the company plans to roll out the first prototype, which is due to fly in 2026, on the 18th of March 2023. Now, the 18th of March is a really auspicious day for Turks, as it will be the 108th anniversary of what we know as the Gallipoli campaign, but which Turkey remembers as the famous naval victory of Çanakkale, the prelude to the Turkish War of Independence. On that same day, Turkish Aerospace is planning to conduct the first flights of both the ATAK-2 combat helicopter and also the Hurjet advanced jet trainer, now also due to fly in 2023. Also being highlighted at IDEF is the new MIUS Unmanned Combat Aircraft. This will be used as a loyal wingman to support the National Combat Aircraft and also as a light attack aircraft in its own right on board the new Turkish landing ship, the Anadolu. Manufacturer Baykar says that the MIUS will also perform strategic attack, missile attack and close air support missions, as well as the suppression of enemy air defences. The Turkish MOD is having to chart a new course forward following Turkey's unceremonious ejection from the American-led F-35 Joint Strike Fighter program. The Turkish Air Force still plans to base its future force structure around a high-low mix of types. 25% of the fast jet force will be high-end, low observable or stealthy fighters, with the remainder consisting of Generation 4.5 aircraft. Now, though it has some of the hallmarks of a fifth-generation fighter, Turkey's new MMU is actually intended to form the cheaper, less capable element in this planned high-low mix, replacing the Air Force's F-16 fighters. About 100 F-35s were to have provided the high-end element. Now, with the termination of the F-35 for Turkey, this plan is in doubt. In the short term, they're likely to extend the service lives of the F-16s, leaving the MMU effectively as the high-end element. Extending the F-16 to operate alongside the MMU could meet Turkish air defence requirements in the short to medium term. Now, a second iteration of the MMU might eventually fill that high-end platform requirement.
You mentioned the F-35 there, Jon, and I guess there's nothing new from the UAE because we've had that review going on by Joe Biden as to whether or not the UAE will get the Reapers and the F-35 that it agreed with the USA during the Donald Trump era. What's happening?
The planned sale of MQ-9 Reapers and F-35 fighters to the United Arab Emirates may soon be coming out of limbo, pending a review by President Joe Biden. Now, the Trump administration had significantly loosened US conventional arms transfer rules in an effort to boost defense exports, especially in the Middle East. But the Biden administration is to undertake a review of all arms sales, and it may place greater emphasis on the human rights records of recipient countries. a letter of offer and acceptance has already been issued by the US and accepted by the UAE, but the Air Force Security and Assistance Cooperation Directorate, AFSAC, has reportedly waited while concerns raised were being settled at the governmental level. Brigadier General Brian Bruckbauer, Director of the Air Force Security Assistance and Cooperation Directorate, commented that this is well beyond my pay grade now. Biden first halted the UAE F-35 deal, but he is now reportedly recommitted to it, now that much of the pro-Israel community has dropped its objections, although a number of Democrats in the Senate still hope to derail the deal.
So sticking with the UAE now, we talked last month about the deteriorating relations between the UAE and Italy. Well, things have not improved. And with major events in the offing in the UAE, including the Dubai Airshow, the 50th anniversary celebrations, and of course the Expo 2020, which now opens in October, many, like me, we're looking forward to the outings of the UAE Air Force's Al-Fursan aerobatic display team. Our guest joining us now, Alan Warnes, Group Editor-at-Large for Air Forces Monthly, has his concerns.
Yeah, well, back in January, the Italians decided to slap an arms embargo on the UAE and Saudi Arabia. And while Saudi Arabia haven't, as far as I know, retaliated, the UAE did. And in June, they kicked the Italians off Al-Minhad airbase, which, and there were some other consequences. There were some instructor pilots, for example, were sent back to Italy, but one of the most highest profile problems has been that Al-Fursan has now had to ground its Maki 339s, which was the aerobatic team of the UAE. And of course, with Dubai coming up, Al-Fursan hasn't got a platform to fly at all. So, it's interesting. I wonder what they're going to be doing.
Now, they're great ambassadors for the UAE, Alan, so presumably it's because the team are flying Italian equipment with Italian support.
Yeah, Al-Fursan are flying 7 Maki 339s, which are quite old, but they were built by Alania, who then became Finmeccanica, who are now Leonardo. So they've got about 12 Maki 339s, of which 7 fly in the routine. And that, as you said, Alan, we see them at Dubai Airshow. Every Dubai Airshow, they put on a 15 half-minute, half-an-hour demonstration close to the end of the day, and often fly through the air show alongside a A380, as they did in the last one. So, it's going to be interesting what they decide to do. I mean, there is some speculation that they might end up flying Alpha jets, which would be a good option. I've heard on the grapevine, for example, that the Patrol de France were going to train them, but I definitely know that one ex-Patrol de France pilot has been training Al-Fursan pilots on the Alpha jet.
Now, and you say that the Italians are not able to use Al-Minhad right now. That must be difficult, as they use the base quite a lot.
Well, they have. I mean, the Italians used Al-Minhad Air Base as a transient stop for a lot of missions. Particularly, the tankers and transports were based there for anti-Daesh military operations. And of course, we now have the Kabul airlift, where everyone's trying to escape from Kabul, and the Italians can't use Al-Minhad. So what they've decided to do is operate out of Kuwait International Airport. And they've had 4 C-130Js flying from Kuwait down to Kabul to pick up the people that need to get out of Kabul.
There's been some talk, Alan, that the UAE is reopening its advanced jet trainer contest. And we could see that some demos are supposed to be happening ahead of the Dubai Airshow. Presumably, that's going to really miff the Italians, isn't it?
Well, they would be, particularly as the Italians already got the contract back. Well, they were awarded the contract in 2009 for the M346, but because of offset problems, the contract was never actually fulfilled. So that was over 10 years ago. So now the UAE are looking for another advanced jet trainer. And the L-15 from China, the Hongdoo L-15, is going there for an evaluation just before Dubai Airshow. And I guess the Italians can't send the 345 or the 346 because the UAE don't like them very much. But we could see the T-50 there, the Korean Aerospace Lockheed Martin T-50. And it'll be interesting to see who else is submitting an aircraft for the eval.
Okay, now let's head across to India, where our defence correspondent Jay Menon has some really good news.
Okay. Now, India has joined a select group of nations with the capability to indigenously design and build an aircraft carrier. The Indian Navy's first indigenous aircraft carrier, which is called IAC-1, or the future INS Vikrant, successfully completed its maiden round of 5-day-long sea trials on August 8th, ahead of its planned commissioning into the service a year hence to mark India's 75th Independence Day. And as we know, an aircraft carrier is one of the most important marine assets for a nation, which enhances a navy's capability to travel far from its home shores to carry out air domination operations. The new 260-meter, that is 860-foot carrier, joins the INS Vikramaditya, the Soviet-made Admiral Goshko that India bought in 2004. So this IAC-1 has been designed by the Indian Navy's Directorate of Naval Design and is being built at the Cochin Shipyard Limited, a public sector shipyard under the Ministry of Shipping. The aircraft carrier cost has gone up from what it was initially planned. Now it is around 20,000 crore at present. So this AFC will eventually support Vikrant's complement of 40-odd Russian MiG-29K KUB fighters and assorted rotary wings assets that include the Kamov 31 and Lockheed Martin's recently, which India ordered, MH-60R multi-role naval helicopters. And it also will eventually deploy the unmanned aircraft systems and in all likelihood the under development light combat aircraft, the naval version.
Thanks very much, Jay. Now, at IDEF, there was some development between Turkey and Pakistan. So what's your take on that, Jay?
Yeah, the latest news which is coming in is that one of Turkey's leading unmanned aerial vehicle producers, that's the Turkish Aerospace Industries, has signed a contract with Pakistan's National Engineering and Science Commission to produce components of the medium altitude, long endurance male combat drone Anka. And they will be jointly responsible for employment, resources, and technology transfer within the scope of the agreement that was aimed to expand the markets of Turkish drone. And according to the general manager of TAI, Mr. Temel Kotel, the contract we made with the Pakistan within the scope of our Anka UAV systems will provide significant gains to the UAV industry. And this acquisition, especially with Pakistan's National Engineering Science, will strengthen the UAV market. The Anka UAV performed its maiden flights in September 2016 and entered serial production in 2017. So India is really looking at this cooperation, and since the Chinese are also helping Pakistan with UAVs, so India is really concerned about this acquisition and cooperation.
Turkey has also been really busy in Africa this month, with Morocco negotiating for 22 T-129 attack helicopters at a reported cost of $1.3 billion. Negotiations between Rabat and Ankara began in 2018, but these were interrupted partly due to a breakdown in diplomatic relations between Morocco and Turkey, and then by the CAATSA, that's the Countering America's Adversaries Through Sanctions Act, which imposed sanctions on Turkey at the end of 2020. Now, America was able to do that because the T-129, of course, is equipped with American T-800 engines. The negotiations have now been relaunched, and America has apparently agreed to a progressive easing of these CAATSA sanctions. The US has already approved an export license for the sale of some T-129s powered by the T-800-4 engine for the Philippines. Now that sets a positive precedent for Morocco, and Pakistan also has a 1.5 billion contract pending for about 30 T129s.
Great. Well, all this activity is looking nice for the DSEI show, one of the major global defence shows that's happening in London in September. Well, one organisation from Saudi Arabia is going to be at the show, keen to make sure delegates realise the new potential that the kingdom has for defence companies. I talked earlier to Sean Ormerod from the World Defence Show, who will be in London to tell all. So, Sean, what do you hope to get from DSEI? There's going to be a lot of interest, I guess, in what's happening in the Middle East right now.
There's still an awful lot of discussions to be had with key players about positioning, about proposition. There's a lot to learn. A lot of my colleagues and a lot of big events are still going through all the protocols around COVID and how to get international visitors in, how to keep people safe. We learned a lot from IDEX earlier in the year, who did a fantastic job of that. A lot of those lessons have been learned for DSEI, and we're hoping to learn a lot from those too. And overall, as I said, this is really the last opportunity to raise the profile and make people aware that there is a new event on the circuit, and it's next up. And we're working flat out. We've just got 6 months and 1 week to go now before we open our doors with our new venue. So we're very much looking forward to it.
Well, in terms of targets, how are you proceeding at the moment? Are you getting pushback? Are you getting the big international defence contractors coming to you?
I think it'd be fair to say, Alan, I think that they're all there. They're all more or less across the line. We've got a number of deals that we need to complete, but I'm very certain that we are going to be in a sold out position and looking about how we squeeze people in. And I have to say, with a new event with 6 months to go, that's a very comfortable position to be in. But it's also very challenging because it now means that a lot of the smaller people in the supply chain who perhaps weren't quite so aware of the new event, or indeed maybe hadn't taken it quite so seriously when it was first launched back in July last year, are now starting to come up and say, me too, and we want to be involved. And the sales team have actually got quite a challenging job, diplomacy job now to do. We're building a brand new venue to host the event, and by definition it means that all the sites and the gateways and arrival points are all new.
And of course, you've also had support from the Saudi government. In our news bulletin last week, we talked about the royal patronage that you have now. And if you've got the King's blessing, then I'm pretty sure you must have the country's support.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's great to have. If I'm honest, we were always hopeful and expected that we would get that support, but it's hard earned and it takes some time. We are a very high profile event, not just for the defence sector, but generally for Saudi, in that this is the real first, shall we say, international trade business tourism event that Saudi's ever really held. So it's great to get that support and patronage. It does mean that the eyes of Saudi are now turning inwards towards us and seeing in the first quarter of next year what a great opportunity this is to put Saudi on the international map and really demonstrate messages that we've heard a lot, which is Saudi's open for business, but this is a real opportunity to wear it on your sleeve as it is.
Okay, so attracting international visitors and exhibitors. In the past, there has been a number of issues, visas, getting product or equipment in, and so on. Are you comfortable that your exhibitors, visitors, and delegations coming from overseas are going to find Saudi as welcoming as we expect it to be?
I'm not going to pull my punches on this one, Alan, because I think it is important. Our colleagues, my colleagues, are fully aware that it's challenging when you set up a new event in a new location, and no more so than where we are right now. There are going to be challenges. There are areas that are new to the Saudis, new to the processes and systems. There are rules and regulations that don't lend themselves to what we do in terms of international markets and international events. We have an incredibly talented and experienced international team, most of whom you would know and we've worked with for decades in many other countries, who are working with all the challenges that you've just mentioned in terms of import of materials, in terms of rules and regulations, and they're working very hard with all the authorities to make sure we are able to offer that service to the level we want to. But I'm not going to pretend that there aren't going to be challenges for our international exhibitors, for their suppliers and for their contractors and their stand builders. It's a new environment and we are looking to them. We will be there to facilitate and make this happen.
Great, Sean. I know we're going to be talking again before the event as things get closer. And we look forward to seeing you at DSEI. So thank you very much for joining us.
We're both going to be at the show, of course, and we look forward to meeting all of you there if you're visiting or if you're exhibiting. And do watch out for our programme, which will be coming from there next month.
Okay, and that's it, I'm afraid. Until then, stay safe. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
How do we achieve ultimate defense interoperability? Inspired by Vision 2030, we are introducing the first of its kind, the World Defense Show. Integrating land, air, sea, satellite, and security.